Hey everyone, this is the final part of the homemade mini crossbow series. Let's get right into it so we can go shoot some things. Our next step will require the rotary tool and a grinding wheel, and the crossbow frame needs to be assembled. We need to carve out an area for a carbon fiber strip to fit into. The space should start right underneath the popsicle sticks on the top piece. The groove needs to be rounded so that it fits the bent shape of the crossbow prod when it's ready to fire. Refer to this diagram. It's kinda hard to just explain this part without using a picture. The groove you carve should be just big enough for a carbon fiber crossbow prod to fit inside. Once you've finished clearing space for the bow, go ahead and cut off the excess cardboard on the sides but not the back. Now we're starting to have a smooth looking frame. With all the edges trimmed, disassemble the frame. While filming this video, I actually cut the groove on the front a little too deep. This black and red frame of my prototype shows how deep the groove should ideally be carved. If you cut too much, the crossbow prod won't be as secure when you shoot it. Not only will you probably have to readjust the bow after every shot, but it can also hinder your accuracy. It's time to glue the rear frame piece we made earlier onto the crossbow. Get the side and top piece that are glued together and do a final check to make sure the piece fits the frame. Now cover the back end with wood glue and press the piece onto it. Clear the excess glue and set it aside to dry. For this step, we'll need to get our front piece that we made a little while ago. We also need one of these small brass hinges, which are labeled as middle hinges on the package they came from. You can find these at hardware stores and craft or hobby stores. Place a side of the small hinge in the middle of your front crossbow piece. Make sure it's completely flat against the edge and that the holes run parallel to it. Now use a pen or fine marker to trace the two holes onto the cardboard. Using a 5/64 inch drill bit, drill completely through the piece, right on the dots you just drew. Drilling back through the holes from the other direction will help prevent the piece from cracking. Now screw on the hinge with the included screws, making sure that the cardboard faces up as the hinge faces down, as shown here. Tighten the screws so that they're flush with the brass hinge, but don't go too far or the crossbow piece may crack. When you're done, the hinge should be securely on the wooden piece and be able to swing back and forth. Now let's go ahead and cut off the ends of the screws so that they don't stick out. The glue from our last step should be dry, so let's put this front piece away for now and assemble our crossbow frame. We need to mark the length of excess cardboard that goes past the back frame piece. Once you've drawn the line on all four sides, take apart the crossbow again and cut off the extra cardboard. The next thing we need to do is draw the dots where holes will be drilled. Mark the middle of the remaining part of the cube on the front of your crossbow and transfer that dot to the top surface as shown. As you can see, the dot on the cube lines up with the one on top. Now do the same thing on the other side using the other cube as a reference. Check to make sure that the dots line up on both sides, and also make sure they're placed directly above the middle of the remaining area of the wood cubes. Since that's looking good, let's draw new dots a little more towards the edges of the frame. Now it's time to drill the holes on the outer set of dots. Use the 5/64 inch drill bit that we had previously. Don't drill these too far, we need a depth of at least 5 but no more than 10 millimeters. When you've drilled both holes, make sure you didn't breach the front of either cube. With that done, let's get out the metal braces that we made a while ago. We need to drill holes through these as well, and they need to line up with the ones we just made. For that, we'll have to drill them near the edge of the brace, but not too close to cause weakness. For this step, a 3/32 bit works great, but you can also use the same 5/64 bit and expand the hole with it. A screw from your package of brass hinges has to be able to fit through it. When you've drilled a hole through both braces, screw them into the top piece to make sure they fit. Then try sliding your top piece underneath the braces. If it doesn't quite have enough space, we'll adjust for that later. Now let's reassemble the crossbow and get a sanding band on the Dremel. This attachment is great for smoothing out any edges that still have extra cardboard. Our next step is about reinforcing the area that holds the bowstring. To do this, you'll need a thin craft stick. You can get a free one at most coffee shops since they're used as stirring sticks. Cut 2 identical pieces of anywhere from 1 to 3 inches long. Trace the wood pieces onto the cardboard above the bowstring notch and adjacent to the ammo track. We'll need to carve out this rectangular area until the stirring sticks can fit in them and be mostly even with the surface. You can use tools like small chisels, grinding wheels, and engraving bits to carve away the material. When you're done, the sticks should be able to fit nicely into the slots you made. Go ahead and glue them in, making sure that the ammo track stays clear. If the stirring sticks aren't completely level with the crossbow's surface, you can simply grind it down with a sanding belt after the glue is dry. Now we need to etch out the bowstring notch, which we'll need the grinding wheel for. Leave the notch straight in the middle and curve it toward the front at the sides. This arc shape reduces stress on both the bowstring and the crossbow, and those craft sticks we just glued on will hold most of the pressure without being damaged. It's very important that both sides have the same curvature. When you've created the curved notch, put on your crossbow prod or bow and pull it back. If the string slips, grind the notch deeper until it holds. If you see the colored popsicle sticks that we glued onto the top piece, don't make it any deeper. If you've reached that point and the string still slips, then your notch is cut at a slant when it needs to be at a right angle. When you've properly refined the groove, the bowstring should stay locked until you pull the trigger. With a little bit of glue, we can reinforce the cardboard parts so they don't fray from the bowstring. Just spread a thin layer of glue over the notch and let it dry. Remember those extra pieces of plywood we saved earlier? Now is where they come in handy. Cut them up if needed and glue them across most of the surface of one side of the handle. Be sure to leave a little space on the front for the trigger. Then glue the other handle piece onto it and make sure they line up as best as they can. Set the handle aside to dry. The next step is to paint your crossbow. Of course, you can keep the cereal box theme if you like, but I think it looks better painted. I bought these metallic gold and silver acrylic paints at my local hobby shop. The painting part is really up to you, but I recommend using 2 coats of paint. For the metal braces, a light sanding will help the paint stick, and a coat of clear nail polish after the paint dries will keep it from chipping off. When painting is done, we can start adding all the separate parts onto the crossbow. Cut a rectangular piece of cardboard that's as long as a crossbow's width and about ½ an inch wide. We need to glue it onto the hinge of the front crossbow piece to allow it to fold correctly onto the crossbow. Apply some hot glue across the hinge and press it onto the cardboard. By filling the holes and then connecting them with the hot glue, we can make the bond a lot stronger. Next, we'll glue the piece onto our crossbow. Check that it fits on the bottom edge and covers the screws, and that the front piece folds up nicely to cover the front of the frame. Apply some hot glue onto the cardboard and make sure it can fold correctly over the front as you're placing it on the bottom. Make any necessary adjustments before the glue hardens. Now we have a working door for our crossbow prod. Now let's glue on the handle. Put glue across all surfaces that will contact the frame and press it firmly onto your crossbow. This crossbow is starting to look pretty cool. The last things to glue on are the ammo clips we made earlier. Before you glue them on, make sure that they fit around a mini wood dowel. They should snap on with a nice satisfying click and hold the dowel securely. If they're good to go, glue them onto the side of your crossbow near the trigger. I attached 4 clips, but you can add up to 8. Now our crossbow can conveniently hold ammo. We're finally moving on to the finishing touches. The holes in the metal braces likely got filled during the painting process, so let's drill those out real quick. Now grab your crossbow prod and attach it to the front of the frame. If you don't yet have one, click one of these annotations to learn how to make it. If you're using a carbon fiber bow, which I recommend, place it in the notch we made earlier. If you're using a spring steel one like this, simply attach it to the front of the crossbow with some hot glue. Then click this annotation to skip all the stuff for the carbon fiber bow. Now we'll go back to the steps for the other crossbow prod. Put the metal braces in place and try to screw them in to secure the bow. Mine don't quite fit onto the crossbow as shown by their upward angle. If yours are like this, simply carve out an area for the braces to fit into. We also need to carve out the space in front of the ammo track so that the crossbow bolts can pass through it. If the swinging door is too tall or wide, that can be fixed by using a sanding belt to trim it down. Here's what it looks like after making those adjustments. If you'd like, you can paint the front piece again to make it look better. Alright guys, we've only got one required part left until we're done. Use a ruler to position the bow so that it has equal length on both sides of the frame. Mark the position of the bow with your metallic marker. Then cut a strip of electrical tape in half lengthwise and wrap the bow with a strip of tape on each side. Secure the bow in place and it should fit snugly without sliding around. An optional thing you can do to enhance your crossbow is to glue a piece like this above the ammo track. This piece will ensure that the string catches the bolt every time and the fletching won't get torn by it. I ruined quite a few bolts before adding this extra part, so it's definitely a good idea. To make it, just cut a strip of popsicle stick and make a hole in it that matches a trigger slot on top of the frame. Then glue it on so that the mini crossbow bolts fit under it snugly and your crossbow should fire correctly every time. This piece also helps improve the crossbow's accuracy. Yes, we're finally finished! The crossbow looks great, now let's test out its performance. We'll start out with some dual wielding because it's freaking awesome. And here's some shots at my homemade target from about 10 feet back. Not the best aim, but I'm sure it would have been better if my bow was secure and didn't move during every shot. As I explained earlier, I made the groove on the front of the crossbow a bit too deep. This could be fixed by filling the groove slightly with some hot glue or something like that. And now it's time to take on the Batman. For some reason, shooting this can was a lot more fun than the bullseye on the wall. However, the power of the crossbow made the bolts penetrate both sides of the can and it kinda ruined the fletching in some cases. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my mini crossbow tutorial. As I mentioned before, I only made this video because of a promise I made a couple years ago. The project was super complicated and required probably over 100 hours of work, including video production. Things are going to get more awesome in the future, so feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell icon. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time.